La Soufriere volcano in Saint Vicent and the Grenadines erupts, prompting thousands to be evacuated. Iran enforces a 10-day lockdown as a fourth wave of the coronavirus spread across the country. And hundreds protest against the deaths of indigenous Australians in police custody. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. La Soufriere volcano in Saint Vicent and the Grenadines erupted twice on Friday, sending thousands of panicked locals fleeing to safety. This is the first time the volcano erupted since 1979. The initial blast from La Soufriere sent plumes of hot ash and smoke 6,000 meters into the air Friday morning, while a second, smaller eruption in the afternoon bleached out a 4,000-meter high ash cloud. Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves had already declared a disaster alert on Thursday when seismic activities suggested that the volcano will erupt soon. The island of Saint Vicent was later placed on red alert, which is the highest threat level. Thousands of people were evacuated from the affected areas. According to the University of the West Indies in Trinidad and Tobago, the volcano is now likely to keep erupting for days or weeks. Antigua and Barbuda's government offered to house 250 evacuees from Saint Vicent at the Jolly Beach Hotel. All evacuees were tested for COVID-19 and were provided masks and other protective gear to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Antigua and Barbuda is also prepared to ship supplies to help disaster management efforts in Saint Vicent. 4 cruise ships were expected to reach the island of Saint Vicent this Friday, 2 operated by Royal Caribbean and 2 from Carnival Cruise Line to help ferry evacuees to nearby islands or shelters elsewhere in the country. Meanwhile, a third Royal Caribbean ship is expected to arrive in the coming days. St. Lucia, Grenada, Barbados, and Antigua and Barbuda all volunteered to house evacuees. La Soufriere last erupted in 1979, and a previous eruption in 1902 killed over 1,000 people. And Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves expressed his gratitude for the support and solidarity offered by neighboring nations like Venezuela, Jamaica, and Belize, among others, following the eruption.
People in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, and in ordinary people, and in Grenada, and in Dominica, St. Lucia, and Antigua, have responded to put people in their homes, strangers, bring tears to my eyes. I love this Caribbean.
Prime Minister Gonsalves also offered an update on the number of people evacuated and taking shelters.
When I raised it with Michelle this morning, about 4,500 persons would have moved. Of course, persons would have moved. I'm talking about moving by the buses, the minibuses, and by the boats, and by private transportation. And you had roughly the number which was given to me by Michelle this morning. She hadn't gotten all the tallies yet. It was in the region of 2,000 persons inside of shelters. There were 20 shelters operational.
The Prime Minister also provided some details about where evacuees were housed during the emergency.
Some persons have gone into guest houses, hotels, and we want to see an expansion of that number. In fact, I've been in touch with Michelle Forbes about this at NEMO, and the Permanent Secretary in Tourism, who is responsible for this, because I'm very concerned. I want to see the elderly persons, the persons who have health problems, people who are shut-ins. I want to see them being placed in the guest houses and in hotels. It will cost more money.
Prime Minister Gonçalves also called for calm as the process of evacuation continues, while noting the support of neighboring nations in housing evacuees.
But in all of this, I want everybody to cooperate. I don't want us to get frustrated. I don't want us to panic. I want us to be disciplined. I want us to be orderly. In respect of the persons to move regionally, I've been in touch with this morning the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Prime Minister of Antigua, the Prime Minister of Dominica. When I leave here, I have to go and talk to the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. I didn't get him the Prime Minister of St. Kitts Nevis. But in the case of Dominica, Grenada, and Antigua, they would be ready certainly by about Sunday, maybe Monday.
And we'll take a short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back. Ecuador is preparing for a crucial second-round presidential vote this Sunday, which could help mark a shift in the political landscape in the region towards a new progressive government.
Born in 2017 on a progressive platform under the leadership of former President Rafael Correa, Ecuador's current president Lenin Moreno became the lead character of one of the world's most spectacular political flip-flops ever recorded. In just 4 years, Ecuador turned from an ambitious economic and social program aimed at redistributing wealth and sovereign development back to privatizations, foreign indebtedness, and IMF-inspired financial and social policies. Human rights violations, persecution of foes, and a close relationship with the United States and its right-wing regional allies became the rule. Moreno defeated Guillermo Lasso, who became in turn his ally and is now disputing the runoff with Andrés Arauz, a 36-year-old economist and a former minister of President Correa. Arauz won the first round last February and polls position him as the likely winner, but cards show a number of uncertainties.
As Peruvians prepare to head to the polls on Sunday to choose a new president and Congress, many continue to express doubts about the process and who to vote for. A total of 18 presidential candidates are running in the vote with no clear favorite and polls indicating the possibility of a high level of null or blank ballots.
As a citizen, I certainly feel very unprotected because there is no accurate information about this election, which should be provided by the health and electoral authorities. The thing is that people will be in somewhat difficult situation as they vote, where maybe they didn't have time to evaluate the candidates who are in this general election. So I think that this will somehow shape the election because it will be a bit confusing.
The tensions of undocumented asylum seekers on the U.S. border with Mexico soared in March to over 172,000, the highest number in 15 years. As the United States continues to deport people trying to enter its territory, despite promises by the Biden administration to end the harsh immigration policies of Donald Trump.
They kicked us out as if, I don't want to say the word, but they kicked us out as it was nothing. They didn't test us in the United States for COVID-19. They didn't test us.
We don't have a safe distance between them. Many don't have face masks. Often, children are malnourished. These are the circumstances of where they have been in these times.
Venezuelan Ombudsman Alfredo Ruiz announced on Thursday the creation of a special commission to address human rights violations against the population of the town of La Victoria on the border with Colombia. According to Ruiz, the commission will include 2 sections specializing in human rights matters to continue carrying out proper investigations regarding the presence of armed Colombian groups in the border region. The commission will document the events and acts carried out by groups linked to drug trafficking, which aim to provoke conflict between the 2 neighboring countries. The Venezuelan government recently sent a letter to the United Nations requesting collaboration in order to establish communication mechanisms with the Colombian government, and also to support the efforts to remove anti-personnel mines placed in La Victoria by the Colombian armed groups. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has confirmed that the Cuban COVID-19 vaccine Abdala will be produced in Caracas. The state-owned pharmaceutical company Espromed Bio will produce the Cuban jab that Venezuela plans to use in its vaccination campaign as well. Abdala is the final stage of phase 3 clinical trials and has so far proven to be safe and effective. On Thursday, the Vice President and Cuban Ambassador to Venezuela, Dagoberto Gomez, visited the lab to verify the required conditions for the production of the vaccine. According to Cuba's Health Minister, José Ángel Portal, his country's 2 vaccine candidates currently in phase 3 trials, Abdala and Soberana 02, are safe, creative, and positive immune response, and side effects are rarely usually mild. Authorities in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro have announced a partial easing of COVID-19 restrictions, claiming that conditions have improved despite a growing number of deaths. The measure was issued with immediate effect, allowing restaurants, shops, bars, and beaches to reopen with reduced opening hours and strict sanitary protocols, such as the mandatory use of face masks. Rio Mayor Eduardo Paes said restrictions could be reimposed if infection rates increase again. In Chile, a tourism boom in the seaside resort of Valparaíso during the austral summer has led to an explosive increase of coronavirus infections.
We believe that this increase is directly related to several factors, but one of them is the holiday permit, which allowed a significant number of people to travel to districts in our region in a festive spirit of rest, relaxation, and disconnection after a very bad year. The atmosphere is palpable in hospitals that are collapsed, that are in total COVID mode. That means patients have to wait 4, 6, or 8 hours for medical attention in emergency rooms.
Chadian President Idris Deby Itno closed his election campaign on Friday as the country prepares to head to the polls on Sunday, when he is running for a 6th term in office. Deby is widely expected to win in the first round, in a part because 2 of the leading opposition candidates withdrew from the race as part of a boycott, while a third man, considered a top contender, chose not to run. The only remaining opposition candidate that has had the sources to campaign outside the capital of the country is Albert Pahimi Padaki, at one time ally of the president, who served as prime minister from 2016 to 2018. Deby, a former armed commander-in-chief, first came to power in 1990 when his rebel forces overthrew then-president Hissène Habré, who was later convicted of human rights abuses at an international court. Presidential elections were held in the small African nation of Djibouti this Friday, with President Ismail Omar Welle is expected to secure a 5th term in office. Some 215,000 citizens were registered to vote, with polling stations opening early across the nation, which overlooks one of the world's busiest trade routes between the Africa and Arabian Peninsula. Election observers say the process ran smoothly, and counting started shortly after polling stations closed around 7 p.m. If no candidate receives a majority of the vote, a second round will be held on April 23rd. President Ismail Omar Welle has ruled the country for the past 22 years.
The election has taken place in good conditions. Thank God it has been peaceful, and above all, thank God the people came out to participate. Now we will wait for the results. I have fulfilled my responsibility.
We have more stories coming up, so stay with us.
Who's moving the chess man? What interests and motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical move. Investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. Iran has enforced a 10-day lockdown as a fourth wave of coronavirus is spreading across the country. Authorities ordered the closure of parks, restaurants, beauty salons, malls, and bookstores in 257 cities. Over 85% of the country is in a designated red or orange zone with the toughest restrictions in place. The country is grappling with a spike following the Persian New Year, the nation's biggest holiday, which drove millions to travel to the Caspian coast and other popular vacation spots, pack markets, and congregate in homes for parties in defiance of government health guidelines. Iranian officials say the daily death toll from COVID-19 rose by 155, putting the country's total over at 64,000 as on Friday. The first week of talks to restore Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers concluded, with all sides hopeful of continuing the discussions that started in the Austrian capital. A joint commission meeting of the remaining participants of the Iran nuclear deal, that is Iran, China, Russia, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, was held in Vienna on Friday following a virtual meeting last week and an in-person meeting on Tuesday. Iran's foreign ministry said Iran was in favor of continuing the talks if all sides to exhibit political will and seriousness to restore the deal that the United States abandoned in May 2018. The talks will continue on Wednesday. One of India's largest cities, Mumbai, has gone into a new lockdown as the country faces a new surge in COVID-19 cases and shortages of vaccines, drugs, and hospital beds. Restaurants have been ordered to close and public gatherings were banned in Maharashtra state and its capital Mumbai to slow the spread of COVID-19. India has been experiencing a new wave of coronavirus infections and has recorded 1 million new cases in the past week. As a result, the country has also suspended exporting vaccines to Qatar for its own population.
There should be both lockdown as well as people being able to run their businesses. The rickshaw drivers are in a really bad shape as there is no business. They have no option but to sit at the street corners, chatting with each other. What else can they do? We have to at least be able to earn a little to meet our daily expenses. The lockdown should be implemented in such a way that the common man is not affected economically. People have children and families. They should be able to at least feed them.
Condolences from around the world have been pouring in following the death of Prince Phillip, the husband of the British monarch Queen Elizabeth. Cannon and gun salutes have been performed in cities across the UK, including London, Edinburgh, and Cardiff, as well as British overseas territories such as Gibraltar. At sea, warships of the British Royal Navy also shot their cannons to mark the passing of Prince Philip, who died at the age of 99 on Friday. It is not yet known whether there will be a public funeral or just a small family gathering amid the pandemic. Hundreds of protesters in Australia have marched through Sydney as part of a national day of action calling for an end to Indigenous citizen deaths in custody. Relatives of Indigenous Australians who have died in custody spoke at the rally, including Kai Paten, whose uncle Eddie Murray was found hanging in his cell for over 40 years. And Noki-chan died in hospital after he was found unconscious in a cell at a correctional facility in 2017. The protest came ahead of the 30th anniversary of a report by the Royal Commission into aboriginal deaths in custody, handed down a report of few of whose recommendation has since been instituted.
It's an action day today. We've had enough conversation with these dug eyes. Time for action now. Time to go walk about. Time to start educating our kids. Time to start rising up, starting to take our land back, taking authority back, taking our communities back, taking our kids back, bringing them home, making sure that they're safe.
Today is 30 years into the Royal Commission and they still have not got their justice. This year marks 40 years since my uncle and his life has been taken from him, and we still have not seen our justice. So we will continue to get up here and tell our story over and over and over again until you get sick of us, because you know what? We're not going nowhere!
Japan's government has approved new coronavirus restrictions for the capital Tokyo and other areas weeks after lifting a state of emergency. The new measures are less severe than the lockdowns seen in other countries and mainly call for restaurants and bars to close at 8 p.m. with the threat of fines for those that do not do it. These restrictions have already been enforced in various hotspots, including Osaka, where a rebound in cases had forced the Olympic torch relay of public roads. The pandemic delayed to 2020 games are due to open on July 23rd in Tokyo, but the surge in cases in parts of the country is sparking new concerns. The new measures will be placed from Monday until May 11 in the capital and until May 5th in the regions of Kyoto and Okinawa.
We came to the decision because of an increase in the number of new infections and the fear that the medical facilities will come under pressure in these areas.
Turkey's hospitals are increasingly overwhelmed as the country has registered record daily numbers of COVID-19 cases for the past 10 days, with nearly 60,000 new infections reported on Thursday. Heads of intensive care units in several hospitals have pointed to a serious crisis if the upward trend continues. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan eased COVID-19 restrictions in early March to benefit the country's economy. However, with the spike in infections, he was forced to announce renewed measures such as weekend lockdowns and the closure of cafes and restaurants during the upcoming Ramadan. Turkey has so far registered over 3.7 million cases, the seventh highest number in Europe.
We're working in a very intense pandemic cycle. Can we call it a third wave? We can. We're extremely busy these days and we're intensively dealing with COVID patients. I can say that 70 to 80% of our hospital's capacity has been set aside for COVID patients, but the remaining 20% emergency cases that have been triggered by COVID that require medical care, and we're intensively dealing with those too.
If this increase in infections continues at this rate, we'll be faced with a very serious crisis. It is not just the number of intensive care beds that's needed. For now, we are able to procure the organ protection equipment we need for those patients. But if this continues at this speed and the public doesn't follow the rules, maybe these resources will also be depleted after some time.
In Myanmar, residents of Langlong, a town near the southern city of Dawei, marched on Friday to voice their opposition to the military junta. Despite fears over violent restrictions from the security forces, residents in the southern part of the country have maintained mobilizations in opposition to the February 1st military takeover for several weeks. Across the country, the threats of lethal violence and arrests of protesters have failed to suppress daily demonstrations, demanding the military step down and reinstate the democratically elected government. According to local organizations, so far around 600 protesters have been killed by the security forces. Egyptian archaeologists have discovered a 3,000-year-old lost city complete with artifacts and tools from pharaonic times. Archaeologist Sahid Hawass announced on Thursday that an Egyptian mission had discovered the mortuary city in the southern province of Luxor. Last year, archaeologists started excavating in the area, searching for the mortuary temple of King Tutankhamun. However, within weeks, archaeologists found mud brick formations that eventually turned out to be a well-preserved large city, city walls, and even rooms filled with tools used in daily life. The city is located between the temple of King Ramses III and the colossi of Amenhotep III on the west bank of the Nile River in Luxor. And we come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.